Hello there, and welcome to another episode of the Hopeful Homeschooling Podcast. My name is Kelly, and I am so glad you have decided to join me for today's episode. If you have never listened to the Hopeful Homeschooling Podcast, this is where we it was zooming out. I don't know. Um, this is where I do my best to try and help other homeschool families just like yours find all of the homeschool help, support, and guidance you need. Of course, we include some hope and humor in that as well, because sometimes in life we've just gotta laugh about it. Okay. And again, if you've never listened, then I'm going to tell you right now, I will be reading from my notes. So it's not you, it's totally me. If I don't use notes, I will completely derail from what I'm trying to say, and I won't get through the full episode. Or we'll spend way too much time talking. Because I do have the gift of gab, friend. Today we were talking about something that is, I don't know, it's kind of exciting to me. We're going to talk about homeschool myths that still trip up even the most veteran of homeschoolers, right? These are the things that all homeschoolers are going to tell you it's not true, but many of us still worry, right? We still struggle with these things. And even after years of homeschooling, some of these old fears they can sneak back in, especially at this kind of February slump mid-year, where we are recording this for. New homeschoolers, like I said, and veteran homeschoolers alike, we all wrestle with some of these myths. So whether you've been at this for just a few minutes or a decade or more, stay around. There might be something new for you to learn here. And remember, myths don't disappear overnight, okay? They whisper in the back of our minds when things get hard. That is when doubt, fear, and worry really like to set in. Okay. So, the purpose of today's episode, of course, I'm going to call out the 5 most common homeschool myths. I'm going to do my best to remember some funny stories and include some encouragement for you. Why? Because homeschooling is life and it is real and it is hard. Just because it's hard doesn't mean it's not worth it, though, friend. By the end of this episode, I am hoping that you will feel a little bit more confident and less burdened by whatever homeschool expectations are causing you to wrestle with doubt, fear, and insecurity. Okay. Um, and I mean, who knows? Maybe you'll learn something new, right? So let's dive right into it. Okay. Myth number one, my kids won't be socialized. Okay. This myth makes you feel like your homeschool child needs a classroom, that they have to be spending all day with other kids their age. And if they're not, they're going to be awkward. They're going to be isolated, pish posh. And I wish I had grabbed it. I can't get it from here. I am currently reading through Dumbing Us Down, right? Um, Myths of Compulsory Education or something like that. I will link to it below. It's a fantastic read, and it's something that really has me motivated right now as I'm getting back into it. It was written by a public school teacher, and one of the things that he is very adamant about is that children don't learn to be adults sitting in a classroom full of other children. And many homeschoolers, we feel the same, right? Um, Reading through my notes. I told you, right? This is what I do. Socialization, friend, it's not sitting at a desk with 25 same age peers. Okay. Real life socialization really does include mingling with people of different ages, different backgrounds, different personalities. It's having real conversations about the things that interest you or interest them. It is learning how to get along with people and go through conflict resolution. Now, oftentimes, right, the reality is that our homeschool students do better having conversations with adults. They're less likely to wrestle with things like being called shy. They can navigate mixed age groups very well because that's just normal. That's how everyday life is for them, right? So, are your children interacting with other human beings every day? Congratulations, they're being socialized. Okay. I could go on for this about this one forever, but I'm going to stop right there. If you want to know more about homeschool socialization, I'm going to put a link in The comments are not in the comments. Oh my goodness. I'm going to put a link in the show notes for you because I wrote an entire blog post on the myth of homeschool socialization. All right, so myth number one was homeschool socialization. Myth number two, I am not qualified to teach my kids. Says who? Right? This myth makes us believe that we need a degree to teach our children, and that if we don't have that degree, we're going to somehow ruin our children's education. And of course, a lot of it's based on the fact that you don't feel adequate, right? And perhaps you don't remember your high school math class or science or history or whatever, right? Perhaps your kids ask questions that you don't know the answer to. Did you know that you can Google things right alongside your children? Did you know you can learn with them? You can sit through the same history lesson or language arts, right? You can learn how to diagram sentences as an adult. Learning doesn't end when you get your diploma, right? And that's the biggest lesson we should be teaching our children. Now, there have been many times, I have a note here that says science, right? There were many, many times when my oldest was still in school that he taught me science. In the sixth grade, he was using what was considered an eighth grade science book. He was doing high school level science for fun on his own. Okay. Um, I'm not holding that child back, and I never did. He was free to go to learn, to explore, and to explain to me what he was learning. And it was a fabulous time. In fact, there were seasons when he taught science to everyone else because he understood the concept way better than I did. And you know what? It's okay. I don't have to know everything as the homeschool parent, and neither do you. Okay. Because remember, you've already taught them the most important things they need in life: how to walk, how to talk. You've already shown them how to use the toilet or how to read a book. And as a homeschooler, you're going to teach them how to find answers, which is the biggest thing they need as they move forward in life. Because homeschooling, my friend, it is about facilitating learning. It's not about knowing everything. It's about modeling curiosity and persistence and looking for the answer, whether that's just hopping online to Google something or going and finding an expert, right? Go to the library, or, if you want to know about welding, find a welder. You want to know about electricity? Find an electrician. We can do these things, right? Does it require a little bit of effort on your part? Of course it does. But remember, as a homeschool parent, your job is not to know everything. It is to find resources, encourage the effort of your children, and just to come along beside them. Give them space to learn. And it's okay to say, you know what? I don't know the answer. We're not experts. We shouldn't be pretending to be. All right. Myth number three, friend, they're going to fall behind. And I know, especially this time of year, this one really hits hard for homeschooling families because we are nearing where most families are hitting their 100th day of learning. We're really starting to wonder if we should be more than 10 weeks into a particular curriculum. The lessons are getting harder. The learning, maybe it's getting a little boring, right? February is not very exciting. Okay. Now, this myth, though, it makes us feel like if our children aren't on grade level in every subject, that they're doomed. We start comparing to public schools or other homeschoolers, or worse, comparing one child to another in the same household. Okay? It is okay if you have a child that struggles. I had a child who couldn't take a test, but knew the material. And this was way back in our early homeschooling days. So I was like, I am failing. We are like, I was ready to pop them all back into public school. But something inside me just said, no, don't do it. Keep going. Right. And, I've shared this story before, panicking over benchmarks of, making my oldest son homeschool during our Christmas break because I was worried he was going to be behind. Right. Because I was an ambitious young homeschool mom who was determined that we were going to do all 180 days in 180 days. Okay. It is okay. Your child is not a machine. Learning is not linear, friend, and homeschooling allows us to slow down where our children need it. It allows us to move forward when they are able, or to let their strengths shine through. We don't have to just look at learning as textbook learning and writing papers. We can learn in unique ways, and we can adapt learning, right? That one that couldn't test, We just learned that there was some test anxiety. So we didn't do paper testing. We did a lot of narration and oral reciting so that we could gauge learning, right? Because homeschooling also allows weaknesses to be supported and to work through them instead of being a stumbling block. So I've got three questions for you. You're worried that your child is falling behind. Falling behind what? Whose timeline? Is it God's design for your child? Or are you looking at the school district's pacing? Or are you looking at the scope and sequence pacing? Did you know it is okay if you take 2 school years to complete one program? It is okay if at the end of your school year, you are only on lesson 100. You can start on 101 at the beginning of the next school year. Okay? You're the only behind in homeschooling. There's a quote. I've seen it 100 times. And if I knew who the original author was, I would completely give them credit. The only behind in homeschooling is the one that everyone is sitting on. Okay? You're not behind. And again, I've got a blog post on this. I could talk so much longer. I'll link it down in the show notes. All right, myth number 4, friend, homeschooling has to look like school at home. This one makes us think that we need desks and worksheets, a calendar and a bell, that we need a 6-hour school day and just learning is going to happen. Ugh. No. And I can tell you, again, from our early days of homeschooling, that that's the antithesis of homeschooling, right? We had the calendar, it was laminated, it was a beautiful schedule, like, blah. All it did was it put up unnecessary constraints on our homeschool. We were over planned. Everything was, it was just, we were so boxed in. Okay. And you know what? Sometimes the desk, it was a great prop for curriculum reviews, right? I can still remember a math curriculum review with my daughter turning 5 and like she's got her hand up. The desk was great. It's a great photo op. It was the youngest that used it more than the big kids because we don't need to learn at a desk, right? We don't need to learn from 9 to 3 or 8 to 3 or whatever your public school hours. We don't have to learn Monday through Friday, August through May, or September to June, or whatever, right? Learning can happen on the couch or in the kitchen, outside, inside. It can happen with just conversations or through listening to an audiobook. It can be in the car, like it can be anywhere. Um, Short focused lessons are generally more impactful than long forced days of learning. And especially when you can connect subjects and perhaps maybe your language arts writing has to do with the history lesson that you're learning, it sticks better, right? Especially if it's an interest-led learning. Um, well, excuse me, I am dry over here today. All right, the last myth, and this is a big one. This really is a big one. And friend, if you are multitasking, and I get it, whenever I take in a podcast or even something on YouTube, I tend to pop my earbuds in and I'm doing something else while I'm doing it. But if you're multitasking, come back because the last myth we're going to talk about today is that if you're struggling as a homeschooler, you're doing it wrong. Okay. This myth makes us believe the lie that good homeschool parents never doubt. Makes us believe the lie that one bad day or one bad month or whatever equals failure. And it makes us think that if we are struggling, it must be a sign to quit. And we're going to sit with that for a second because I want that awkwardness, right? I want you to pause because the reality is that struggle is a part of parenting, right? I've said it once. I'll say it almost every episode I think of this podcast. Homeschooling is hard because parenting is hard. Teaching is hard. Growing children, raising children is hard. Life is hard, right? Um, I mean, I struggled just, we're starting this podcast and it's new and I'm learning all the kinds of new things as I do it. It's not easy. It's not straightforward. I make mistakes. I mess up. Like, struggle is just a part of doing something new that doesn't come natural, right? Every homeschool, my friend, is going to have hard seasons. We're all going to have transition years. We are all going to have days that are filled with tears and other days that are filled with amazing breakthroughs. Now, the goal, of course, is to have more on the happy, right? More days where it goes well, more days where we hop into bed at the end of the night and we're like, it was a great day. But the reality is, in this world, we're going to have difficult times, right? Trials and tribulations. That's how Jesus told us, right? So the struggle doesn't mean that you need to stop. Okay. If you are in a difficult season, it's okay. You might need to adjust. You might need to pause. Maybe perhaps you need to enlist the help of a homeschool friend, right? Maybe you need to join a co-op or find some homeschool support, whether it's in person or online. Maybe it's a sign that everybody is just overwhelmed and your homeschool needs a break. Okay. Struggling doesn't mean it's wrong. And in fact, I would go so far as to say, friend, if you are concerned about your homeschool, you're probably doing a really good job. Because if you weren't concerned and it was going poorly, then you got to wonder if this whole parenting homeschooling thing is right for you, right? So, how do you overcome these things? All right, because there's way more than five homeschool myths out there. Okay, I get that, right? Let's see. I mean, I've got a couple in my notes here. It says homeschool kids are weird. You have to have an expensive curriculum. You got to do it all by yourself, right? Your kids will grow up to resent you. Homeschooling will be the worst. Okay, they're not true. Are there some families where some of this might be true? Okay. I can tell you as a kid, I was the shy kid. I was the really quiet one. Ooh, don't ask me to read aloud in class. Don't ask me to raise my hand. Don't ask me to get up in front of anybody ever. But I also grew up my entire childhood in a classroom with people, right? That just I didn't really have a lot of friends in my friends group, probably because I was shy. But I also grew up hearing how shy I was. And nobody was encouraging me to find a way to get out of that. I remember the first creative writing class I took, I was afraid to take it because I wasn't sure if I was going to be any good at it. And here I am now, years later, writing, sharing words, putting my face out there on the internet. It's amazing. No, you don't need an expensive curriculum. In fact, I've got an entire blog post on the three things that you need to homeschool. And the most expensive thing on that list is going to be whatever brand of coffee you like to drink. Or in my case, it's tea, right? No, you don't have to do everything yourself, friend. There's online options, there's tutors. Okay. So, friend, what can you do? What can you do to leave today's episode feeling a little bit better, a little bit lighter, right? Well, remember, number one, stop comparing your homeschool to someone else's. Okay. The only time you should be looking into someone else's homeschool is to see how can I help them, right? Um, Number two, focus on connection with your children before the curriculum. Okay. If that means you have to pause a lesson, go for it, right? Go pick up donuts for breakfast or take them to the park. Um, when the kids wake up, tell them you're not doing school today, you're gonna spend the day baking, or that maybe you're gonna, I don't know, go to a museum or do something, right? Um, Number three, identify one of the myths that I just gave you. And if you still believe it, I want you to challenge it. Like journaling, um, just kind of some affirmations, however you want to go there. Um, Number four, celebrate a small win that you've got. What did you do well as a homeschool? And last, remember, you're allowed to grow in this, right? You've never been this homeschooler in this season before, so you're still learning right alongside of your children. Now, friend, if these myths are tripping you up, I am a huge fan of journaling. Whether that's just regular journaling where you grab a journal off Amazon or perhaps prayer journaling. I do have some faith-based resources that are definitely going to help you dig in. I am going to link those below. Because when it comes to your mindset as a homeschooler and the myths that you allow to kind of take root, they're not good. And they are not the things that are good, noble, honest, truthful that we are supposed to be thinking on, friend. So I'm going to link those down in the show notes. Now, friend, I do have one more request for you. We usually do this at the beginning, but if you get something valuable out of today's episode, I would really appreciate it if you would consider either liking or subscribing, right? Wherever you're listening to. And then possibly sharing this episode with one homeschool friend that you know who could also benefit from busting some of these common homeschool myths. All right, friends, that is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for joining me. Again, I am Kelly Warner with the Hopeful Homeschooling Podcast, and I hope we'll see you next time. Bye for now.